and get started. So first of all, thank you so much. This is a wonderful, wonderful turnout. So exciting to be here with all of you. My name is Jared Roberts. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Emerging Professionals ERG. And it is just super excited to see you all. It's good to see some faces I recognize and faces that I don't recognize. I love you both equally, though. It's just exciting. So again, thanks so much for coming. Thank you to the Inclusion, Diversity, and Health Equity team for supporting these ERGs and helping us put on these great events. We're so appreciative of that. And I'm actually just going to walk through really quickly kind of why we're here today and what we hope to talk about, and then I'm going to turn it over to some other folks. But this year, if you're part of an ERG, actually that's a great question. How many of you here are part of an ERG already? Raise your hand. Okay, so about half. How many of you are part of the Emerging Professionals ERG? About a fourth, maybe less. Okay, great. So we're bringing in folks from all over. That's wonderful. If you're not a member of an ERG, it's not too late, right, Anna? There are ways to sign up still.
Lots of ways. We are giving out a flyer, so hopefully you got it.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so if you are a member of an ERG, you've seen this diagram probably a few times. So this is the 4C model. It kind of sets the framework for how our ERGs are structured. Today we're focusing specifically on this careers section, okay? So not probably surprising that an emerging professionals ERG would be interested in career development, but it's also a very prevalent theme throughout all of the ERGs. So what we hope to do today is learn a little bit more about career development opportunities that we have here, and it's an exciting opportunity for us to hear from Todd Prigge. One of the reasons that we wanted to talk about that, and just highlighting here, we sent out a survey after our launch event last year, and these were kind of the areas of most interest that we got back. And so today we were able to do some networking and career development. And so this template here will kind of set the stage for what we want to do going forward as an ERG, and what kinds of events we want to schedule, and what kind of folks we want to bring in to talk to us. So thank you for responding to this, because that will be very impactful. So now I'm going to turn it over actually to Catherine Kerna, who's one of our executive sponsors, to share some thoughts with us as well as introduce our speaker. Catherine.
Thanks, Jared. Good afternoon. So I know many people in the room, but I don't know everybody. So by means of introduction, my name is Catherine Kerna. I am the Chief Administrative Officer of University Health Care Alliance and the Vice President of the Ambulatory Care and Service Lines. I'm also one of the very proud executive sponsors of the Emerging Professionals ERG. So for those of you who haven't signed up, I would encourage you to do so. We're in for a real treat today and will be over the course of the foreseeable future. So as I was thinking about just a few words to open up today and to really segue into Todd's talk and what you're going to be discussing today, I was thinking back on what I think was my first formal career chapter out of college when I was a consultant at McKinsey & Company. How many people in the room have been a consultant, have interacted with consultants? You've probably all interacted with consultants. No, I'm not going to ask you how that experience was. But just a little bit about thinking back to Catherine Rucker at the time when she was a consultant. McKinsey's culture is one where you get feedback early and often. I remember starting many of my weekends close to tears, not because I had been hurt or unprofessionally treated, but because the culture there was one of, even at the analyst level, you get to know after every meeting how you did, with a focus on what you did well and what are the things that you could work on. And McKinsey did a great job of investing in resources to help analysts, associates, partners take it to the next level. What I didn't really quite realize at the time, and I didn't really fully appreciate until I got to Stanford, is I spent way too much time during that chapter in my career focusing on what I did poorly, what I needed to work on. There were way too many shed tears. What I really should have been thinking about is, okay, wait a minute, that was balanced feedback. There's some things that I really do well. I should always be aware of the things that I can work on, but in order to get better at the things that you don't do as well, you really do need to pat yourself on the back for the things that you are doing well. What I'm a little bit more embarrassed to say is it really took me coming to Stanford to really embrace this notion of strengths and superpowers. Superpowers is kind of a cool phrase. I don't know who coined it here, but I have my current coach. I'm part of the Stanford Leadership Academy, which is a wonderful experience and just a testament to the value that Stanford places on supporting all of us as we continue to progress in our careers. And my coach keeps coming back and was like, Catherine, stop with what you need to work on. Remember what your superpowers are. So anyway, I would just encourage all of you, whether you're familiar with the Standout tool, which really encourages us to think about our strengths, to focus on your superpowers and to get yourself in that frame of mind before you start thinking about, okay, what are the things about my leadership capabilities that I want and should develop? So point one. Second point, I want to give today's current speaker and David Jones a little bit of a shout out, because one of the things that I've noticed over the course of my almost 5 years here is how much better of a job we're doing at the executive level in identifying emerging professionals or young leaders and not thinking about you as assets of our team. So it wasn't so long ago that vice presidents were very desirous of, oh my gosh, I hope I don't lose her or I don't lose him, instead of listening to what does him or her want to do over the course of their career. And with such a desire and a gift to have so many strong emerging professionals at Stanford, what can we do to identify what you want to do and work on to make sure that however many chapters you have here at Stanford or elsewhere, we do a good job of not only providing you the resources, but giving you the encouragement to really find your best self in the places that you find yourself across SHC. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to somebody who really doesn't need any introduction, and I'm certainly not going to try to introduce him. But you're in for a real treat today to hear from Todd Prigge. So thanks.
Thanks, Catherine. I was thinking about coming today and speaking to a group of emerging professionals. And I'm in my 2-minute warning of my career. And so I was thinking, gosh, would I want to train places? No, I'm good with where I'm at and good place and space. So what I wanted to do is share with you a little bit what we think about when we think about developing our people, when we think about developing you as leaders. What are we thinking about? And how do we approach that? And how do we give you insights that can help inform you, what you want to do and what you need to do to further develop your career. So kind of give some insights as how do we look at talent and how are we thinking about it. And then give you some opportunities to think about how am I shaping my career? What's my part in this journey? And are there things I can share with you today that can help inform you as you start thinking about those things? So just some shared assumptions around leadership. So when we think about leadership, a leader for all seasons, well, what does that mean? So about 5 years ago with our prior leadership, we started looking at and thinking about what does an SHC leader look like? What is that robotic thing that we want our leaders to look like? What are the competencies that they need to have? What does that leader look like, sound like, act like, feel like? And the more we thought about it, what we looked at and what we understand is what a Stanford leader looks like is this room. It looks like all of us bring in our own unique strengths and our own unique abilities to the organization. And when I think about inclusion and I think about diversity, it's how do you bring your whole self to work? But more importantly, it's how do we receive you and understand you to do that. So when I think about a leader for all seasons, we're all unique individuals, and how do we tap into that uniqueness? How many of you were here when Amir Dan Rubin was our president? All right. So when Amir was here, he really was about two things. One, he was about CI care and the patient experience, and he was all over that. And if I look at when I first joined, which was here before, you were just lucky to come to Stanford. We're going to treat you any way you want, but you're at Stanford. Well, when Amir came, just all of this focus on the patient experience was amazing. The other thing that Amir did was amazing is he grew the business. I mean, we went from 5,000 employees to now the 15,000 employees we have across the enterprise, all of the growth that we have at all of our sites. Amazing leader building. And then, when Amir left, it's like, who's going to follow that? How do you top that? I mean, that guy was phenomenal. That guy was energetic. He was all over the place. And in walks our current leader, David Entwistle. Well, those two gentlemen couldn't be more different. I mean, they could not have been more opposite. And yet, if you look at what David has done to lead the organization today, and stabilize and operationalize what we've done and all of the benchmarks that we're doing today. Phenomenal. And David's amazing in his own right, and certainly is as well. So there's not one size, and we start to understand that. So how do we look at you individually? Now, having said that, we also realize that leaders have some core common traits, core elements, behaviors that are consistent across the board. They're good communicators. You know, one of the things that we ask our leaders to do, we ask the leaders to do a couple different things. They round on their staff. They round related to CI care. That's a great behavior. Another behavior is they check in with you on a weekly basis, right? They ask you, what'd you love, what'd you loathe? What are your strengths? You get a chance to use them. What are you working on, and how can I help? So, I mean, we do understand that there's a core set of behaviors, and we're working to further refine those and build those out. The other assumption is leaders can be developed. So when I first got into this business a long, long time ago, are the leaders born or are they developed? Are they made, right? Well, clearly we can develop leaders. And so these are kind of three foundational assumptions that we have today as we start thinking about our talent. The boxes on the bottom is there's more to come, and there's always so much more to do in this particular space.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. All right, talent development. So a couple things. When I think about my group and the area that I'm responsible for, how do we start thinking about team or individuals and teams? So my group is responsible for talent development. We look at it at the individual level, the team level, as well as the organizational level. And so how do we provide continuous learning opportunities for our folks as they grow and develop in their careers? One of the frameworks that we use is this notion of 70-20-10. So the best way to grow and develop in a role is to be in that role. Now, that doesn't mean push you off the cliff, good luck. And sometimes it certainly feels that way when you move into a new job. So how do we work with our leaders to make sure that they're providing you with intent? What's our intent for you as you move into this role? What are those guardrails that we want you to stay within in your first 12 months on the job? What are the targets that we want you to hit along the way? The other one is coaching and mentoring. One of the things that the emerging professionals understand better than us boomers is how do you tap into each other, right? How do you go to each other for advice and counsel? And you don't have one coach, you don't have one mentor, you have multiple coaches. You have multiple mentors. You're constantly bouncing ideas off of folks and getting their input. That's great. And so one of the most powerful tools that we have is this notion of coaching and mentoring. Coaching and mentoring are very different, by the way. They often get bounced together, right? Coaching is asking questions. So on my strength is I'm an advisor. So I like to tell people. But when I'm coaching, I really have to get present and think about asking questions. So for those of you that manage others and as you're interacting with others, think about questions. And then training and education, how do we develop you? Now it's only 10% here. That doesn't mean it's 10% as valuable as the others. No, it just means how you're really going to grow in your profession and grow in your careers is based on the roles and jobs that you take. Fortunately, I think a lot of the emerging professionals are good at bouncing around, and that's a good thing because that's how you're really going to learn and grow. Some other additional support, and I'll move on quickly from here, but just to kind of give you a view for the type of things that we offer our organization is leadership development. We have a fairly robust curriculum, especially for emerging professionals. At your tables, and if you need some in the back, we'll get those for you. We've got our training catalog. We also provide coaching. So we have services out of my shop that we provide executive coaching. We'll also provide instrumented coaching. So if you've taken your standout assessment, you've gotten your standout report, there's tons of information in there. Gosh, can we provide you a coach to walk you through that so you have a better understanding of what all that information means? And how do you tap into that? Also team development. So for those in the room that lead others, so if you lead a team and you want support, reach out to us. Jeff Edgar's our manager of our OD team. and we can provide you some resources to help guide your teams along the way. And then lastly is system development opportunities. So we just finished up a leadership summit of which our 700 leaders participated in. We do our employee engagement efforts, which you're all very familiar with, and thank you for Catherine for the shout out this morning on Standout. We also do succession planning, and I'll talk a little bit about what that is and why we use that, and that'll give some insights into leadership as well. So for those of you, and I understand that a lot of you are individual contributors in the room, and so what I would offer, and I'll talk to Lisa McInnes and then I'll get back to Amanda and Jared, but for this emerging professional group, if you're an individual contributor and you'd like to participate in these programs, we'll open up these courses for you so you can explore, do I want to go into management? So I think the one thing as we start looking about the future is how do we make our development much more individually based? So employee engagement, real quickly, things that work that we're doing with our standard efforts, the importance of strengths. How do you really tap into and how do you identify what your strengths are? Catherine defined them as superpowers. So when we talk about strengths, it's not stuff that you're necessarily good at. There's things that I'm good at, but I just don't enjoy doing them, right? And so strengths are really one of those things that you do that you love to do, you get into flow, and that really taps into that voice in you that says, I'm in the moment and loving what I'm doing. And so how do you start to identify what those strengths are? How many of you do check-ins? David Jones is in the room, so you do want to raise your hand at this point in time. But what I would say is, as you fill that out, as you complete that, there's that section, loves and loathes. So don't just randomly say, this sucked this week and here's why, but think about your loves, right? What are those loves? You know, you can go back into the tool and you can take a look at all the loves that you've captured. Are there patterns? Are there themes? Are there trends? Right? What do you love? If you can find your love, you'll never work a day in your life. Right? I'm an elementary school teacher. I've had multiple jobs throughout my life. I've loaded 747 freighters, right? I've worked in airline reservations. But each and every time, what I ended up doing is I gravitated and I found myself training. I always was in training and development. So at the core, my love is developing people. My love is teaching, right? And no matter what job I was in, I went to that strength and I led with that strength. And so pay attention to your loves. Go back and review those. And then how do your loves guide you to where you want to go? Can't say enough about that. And we have a responsibility to provide you more insights into your loves as well. Succession planning. So I want to, one of the things that Catherine really kind of wanted me to chat about was this notion of succession planning. And within, how many of you are familiar with the concept? All right. When I first started this, it's like if you get hit by a Mack truck, who would be behind you? Right? Who would take your job? We don't say that anymore. We've gotten into this, okay, if you were to go out on sabbatical or move out of your position, who could hold your stead for 6 months and take that on comfortably? And so our goal is kind of twofold. One is, how do we know who's on our bench? How do we know who's on the team and what their capabilities are? And the second piece is, how do we make sure that we have a pipeline and that we can continue to bring people up through the organization into key roles at any given point in time because we know what they're capable of and we feel confident that they can step into this role and that we've groomed and developed them. So I want to give you some insights into what we think about, which can help you recognize what are the things that I need to pay attention to. Currently today with succession planning, we really only formally do succession planning for our top 22 positions. So we do it for David Entwistle's position, We do it for David Entwistle's Executive Council, which is our C-suite direct reports. And then we do it for the vice presidents and the operational leadership team, the vice presidents of operations. Now, so that's 22 positions, but the pool of people that we're having conversations around and discussing is about 200 people, 200 leaders. And I'll explain more a little bit about that in just a second. So the succession planning model, won't spend any time here, is really just we figure out what are the roles we want to look at. We'll assess our talent and give thought to that. We'll have conversations, what we call talent calibration sessions with our leaders about the folks that we've assessed. And then we will have individual development plans set up for our high potentials, and then we'll cycle through. So we use what we call a 9-box process, right? So it's a 9-box grid, and it's based on a matrix of potential. What do we see as this person's potential? And the potential is really looking at where is this person at potential? Meaning they're at a level, they're in a role that they're good at and that they should be in. 2, that they have moderate potential. That within this moderate potential, we see them promotable in this 3 to 5 year range. And then we have what we call as our high potentials. And at the high potential level, this person is ready for a promotion probably within the next year to 2 years. So that's one axis is the potential. The other one is learning agility. And the interesting thing about learning agility is we used to do performance, but we're shifting to learning agility. So who are those early adapters? So who are those leading edge folks that are getting out in front of ideas and concepts and are constantly asking for more? And so how do we tap into those proactive employees that have a quest and a hunger for development and our early adopters? Versus in the middle, our current adopters and then late adopters at the end. A couple quick boxes here just to note. Now, the couple things here that I would say is I've done this now several years with our executive team. Marcus Buckingham has a book out, The 9 Myths Around HR. And one of the myths is don't do succession planning, right? Who are we to judge others? It's unconscionable to judge and evaluate people. The one thing that I would say is having done this with our executive team multiple years, they have been amazing in how they respect our people, the dignity and the respect that they show as we have the conversations about our folks. Very powerful. Also note that this is a living, breathing document. So when we have sessions where leaders place people at the end of the session with their peers, we'll move 30 to 40% of the people. So this is a living, breathing document. It's one that's based on crucial conversations and feedback about each other, again, thoughtfully done. Just to kind of talk about some of the boxes, I don't want to make this a succession planning conversation, but this person who's over here on the right, this trusted professional, right? So here's someone that is an early adopter, bringing forward new ideas, asking for additional work, and they're at potential. We're not going to promote them. They're not going to be promoted, and yet they just continue to rock it, right? And that's what we would call a trusted professional. The colors didn't pop out here real clear, but the top right, rising star, leading edge, emerging talent, that shaded green, those are what we would call high potentials. So remember when we did Talent Plus, for those of you who have been here, which is an employment assessment, what we know, and we know by research, is that these folks that are categorized as potentials deliver 3 to 5 times the results as anyone else on the box. And so it's absolutely important for us as we go out and we hire talent and as we retain talent that we're making sure that we're looking for these folks that fit into this category that we call high potential. The blue boxes, which is kind of this L shape, solid, well-rounded, tried and true, trusted professional. the blue boxes. Harvard Business Review has a great article that's called "Let's Hear It for the B Team." And really what they're saying is the foundation of any organization are these folks that keep the lights on and the doors open, right? Salt of the earth, come in, do great work. And so don't ever lose sight of those individuals in your organization. And then on the far left side, those are people that just are not performing for whatever reason. Questionable fit, they have potential. You can see it, but something's not quite right. And typically it's one of two things. One, they're really hard to work with, right? They really struggle relationally with the people they work with. They maybe are performing, they maybe are delivering, and yet no one really wants to work with them. So that's one person. The other person is, they're great, we love them, they're the mayor, they just don't do anything, right? And so we find them to be a little bit of a questionable fit. Another interesting one is that top left box, high potential individual, person's a rock star, they're just not performing. So a few years back, we had an individual that we identified this at a senior level, and the executive said, hey, I know of a position over here that I think would be a better fit. We moved that director level employee, they went over there and they just rocked it, right? So we could see they had potential. We wanted to take care of that person, but by moving them into the right role, their career just kind of took off. I've kind of talked about this. The other thing that we do is we create, where's my boss when I need him, right? Right when I put up the pandering suck-up slide, he walks out the door. All right. But one of the things that we do is we create a board report, right? So for all of our executives, we create talent profiles. And these are things that we're asking their managers complete on them, right? So what has been this person's key contributions in the past year? What unique strengths does this person bring to Stanford? Are there any development areas that this person has? Are there any derailers? Behaviors that get in this person's way, right? So we be thoughtful about that. And then where do they fit in the 9 box? The other things that we're looking at, what's the risk of this person leaving? Do we think this person would leave in the next 12 months? If that person left in the next 12 months, what would be the impact of that loss? Low, medium, high. And so it's got us thinking about how do we retain our high potentials? How do we retain our organizations? The other thing that we do is starting to look at analytics. And I think this is great for marrying all of the work that we're doing. And so we're looking at what's the age of these groups? What's the gender of these groups? What's the ethnicity of these groups? What's the years of service of these groups? So this is live data. So this is David Entwistle. This is actually real data from David's Executive Council. So on David's Executive Council, you can see that 70% are men, 30% are female women. Ethnicity, 60% white, Asian is 30%, 10% is black. And so over time we trend this, and are we making a difference? And how does this benchmark with national organizations? Clearly with our C-suite, there's only 10 people, so it's hard to tell, but when we get down to OLT and we've got a population of about 75, 80 people that we're looking at, much more dynamic information, and yet informing. And this is where, how do we make decisions? And I think this is where the ERGs can really help us, right? So as we start looking at what does our leadership team need to look like, it needs to look like this room, to be quite honest, right? And so how are we reflective of that? And then how do we make quality decisions, get their people's careers focused, and development efforts? So that's kind of things that are happening today. Let me just jump to kind of what we're thinking about in the future. So I would tell you that I think what we've done today from a development side, and it's all been around leadership, right? We've not really focused on the individual contributors. And I think we need to come up with different tracks, right? We need to have leadership tracks. We need to have research and development tracks. And then we need to have just subject matter expert tracks or educator tracks, for people that want to go into an educational quality profession, those that want to be researchers. So how do we start to develop tracks? We know that, great, everything we've done is kind of put everyone together, and here's the one size fits all, and it's really great stuff, and yet what we know is people want to have their own individual plan. So part of that is, right now is, we've got our integrated strategic plan as an organization. HR is now starting to create a people strategy. So how do we think about our people? Nothing really here other than we're just taking our integrated strategic plan, making sure that we're aligned to it. From the people side of it, a couple things to note is this middle box, kind of this pink area, employee experience value proposition. So one of the things that we're trying to get really thoughtful for is, why do you want to be here? Great, we know what you can do for us. What do we have to offer you? So we offer you a great brand, cool. It's cool for 6 months and then you get into the place, right? We pay really well, right? And pay is, that lasts for a certain period of time, and then I need more, want more, but we pay well. But what is it else that we bring to you as our employees to understand, man, I want to be a part of this. Why do I want to be a part of this? And so we're in the process kind of trying to identify what that is and what that means. And I think our ERGs across the organization will help figure out what exactly is our value proposition that we as an organization have to bring to you, as well as what we owe you, right? The other one down at the bottom, so all of this starts to funnel down to what are we thinking about. And if I think about our priorities and what we talk about in HR is what is uniquely Stanford, desired leadership, diversity, culture, and values, and then a talent as our competitive advantage. So when we think about talent in the organization, we know that we're not just competing with Sutter, Spirit Health, Kaiser. We're also competing with the Googles and Apples of the world as well. Oh, one thing that I would go back to the 9 box in that at potential area. So oftentimes our managers, when we're hiring a position, it's, I want to hire for this position. I need a person who can do this job. And what we've got to get to is, if I'm going to bring a person in to do this job, as I'm thinking about them, how am I thinking about what can this person do 2 levels up, 2 jobs over, right? So it's a given that they can do the job. That's the easy part of filling the job. But as I'm looking at talent for Stanford, what else do I see in this person that I know that in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they're going to make these jumps or have the ability to make these jumps to stay in the organization and continue to grow in the organization. One of the things that we're in the process of doing is installing a new human capital platform that's called Workday. Now, Workday is just a tool. But what Workday's been helpful and thoughtful in is helping us start to think through what are the things that we need to get clear about from a future state talent development perspective. And so on the left-hand side are things that we're kind of familiar with in regards to the succession planning. The one thing that we'll be able to do with this tool, though, is we will be able to cascade this down deeper into the organization, right? So rather than our top 22 positions, we could really cascade this down as far as we could go. Now, I get a little anxious about that. One, I have control issues. But secondly, it's how do we make sure that all of that dignity and respect that we're giving with our executives as we talk about that, how do we make sure we can control that as we take that down deeper into the organization? Our goals, performance appraisals, feedback loops in the systems, pretty typical things. I think when we get over here on the right-hand side, not so much the disciplinary action stuff, but if you look at the career development piece, this is our future work. This is my future work. This is my team's future work. This is partnering with Mary and all of the ERGs, their future work, which is this notion of career development. So we don't have a framework set. We're in the process of starting to think that through, research that. We'll be looking for all of the ERGs to help inform us what's important to you. In just a moment, I'm going to do a quick exercise or piece with you. License, down at the bottom, talent profiles. So Workday is its own little mini LinkedIn, right? So you'll be able to post your resumes, post your skill sets, and then our recruiters will internally on our own system be able to actively recruit you based on the information that you're providing in your talent profiles. There's also some cool little pieces in there that are artificial intelligence, whereas people move and make certain jumps, the more jumps that take place in certain positions, we'll be able to say, well, if I wanted to be X position, Workday will be able to say, okay, so here's some potential paths for you based on what other people have done to get to those jobs. So it will help inform us and help you as employees think about, gosh, if I want to be an X, what are some paths for me to get there? All right. So what I like to do is just kind of engage you and like to take about 10 minutes at your table. If you could answer these questions. There is a blank sheet of paper at your table, and if one of you wouldn't mind taking notes, for those of you that got here early and got in the back of the bus or got in the back chairs, just kind of huddle up with the people around you, answer those questions. Otherwise, I'd invite you to join the table up front. There's plenty of seats at each of the tables if you'd like to do that. Either way is cool, but just take about 10 minutes, answer these questions, and we'll reconnect and hear from a few of the groups.
I like dermatology. There's a lot of psychology. I like Christmas stories, but I can future, right, I swear. What about you? No, it's
We're definitely picking this one. I mean, my mid-career.
Well, that's a good choice.
I still got 2 extra years left.
How are we doing? Good. Thanks. Was that what? No. That's the same thing like that. Yeah. Okay.
But you know, you're still kind of always like, right. Just out of curiosity. So it's fun. It's a different perspective. I was just thinking about it. Versus being where you're at. There's so many opportunities.
2 minutes. We'll give you another minute, and then we'll reconvene as a large group. Give you another minute. All right, welcome back, welcome back. I know some of you didn't get through all of the questions. For those groups that captured notes on the paper, if you'll leave those at your table, love to pick those up, and those will help us. We're in the process of redefining a new talent development strategy based on the people strategy that we talked about. Love to hear from a couple groups. Anyone that would like to share how they answered any of these questions? This would be the audience participation part. Yes, thank you.
We talked about a few things. One thing we talked about is developing users that can be flexible to certain things, like when you cover for maybe different departments, things like that, and not feeling like it's a total description of that, but you do feel empowered to make some decisions that you do moving forward, so that later is coming back, you don't feel like nothing was accomplished if there was something. And we also talked about knowing someone has your back, being supported that way when you are making these kind of tougher decisions. And lastly, we talked about making sure it's always nice to hear that everything you're doing is great and awesome, but being able to give constructive feedback too, so you are able to grow as well.
So one is kind of the substitute teacher phenomena. I'm going to go out on sabbatical for a while. What are you going to do? You're going to just show movies for 6 months, or are we going to do some work? And then empowering that interim person, school teacher, empowering that leader to make those types of calls. And then it's this culture of feedback. For those of you who haven't taken the course, take Crucial Conversation. Right? Life-changing, the ability to provide feedback, give feedback, I think is one of the most powerful things. And again, if we do it right, and it comes from a place of good intentions, right? Others, yes, in the back, thank you.
So our group discussed mainly exposure, and that kind of falls out into different areas. So one could be the sponsorship, mentorship, coaching. As well, we talked about kind of a vision being facilitated for us so that we are actually become aware of what we don't know, right? Because there can be so many opportunities across the organization. And also avoiding being pigeonholed. So say you've done something because you're really good at it and other teams want you for that, but if you're interested in perhaps developing other skill sets, opportunities to kind of, make that lateral step there.
Great. So one is this notion of exposure, and be a part of an ERG. Be a part of a network, and one of the best ways for you to get that exposure is to get out and do that. I don't see her right now, but Anna DePella Garcia, 10, 11 years ago, started this thing she called the Directors Forum, right? Where all the directors would get together quarterly and go to lunch or go have breakfast. Created this great network, and they just all supported each other, and they could just help each other's careers grow and move on. So getting involved. The thing I've observed in my time here, 11 years, if you do great things, you work hard and build relationships, people are going to start tapping you on the shoulders, right? The movement that takes place in this, what I love about this place is you can have umpteen different jobs, umpteen different roles, and still have a career at Stanford, right? But it's do the work, build relationships. And likewise, thank you. We have a responsibility to you to figure out how do we do that? How do we provide opportunities for you to make those movements across boundaries? Time for one more. Yes, in the back, please.
Back here, we talked about, for number 3, we talked about wanting more job flexibility and work-life balance. We think that's really important to avoid burnout.
Yeah, I wish some of my other colleagues were here. I know in HR, some of the things we're looking at is telecommuting and some of those things that are helping people get creative. It's very competitive in this marketplace. And then, how do we provide different flexibilities with hours? People are getting at a place in space where they don't want to work 80 hours. So I think we need to get creative with that. I'll carry that back to the ranch with me to HR and inform that. Thanks. One more. Yep.
I think what we, besides everything, what was able to discuss was you have to know what you want to be developed, right? I mean, the idea is that you keep doing what you're doing and you think that somebody is going to be propelled up, but it's working on where you want to go in your own course for self-development.
So we have a responsibility to bring tools and resources to help you grow and develop. Who's responsible for your career? Right? And again, I mentioned people are going to tap you on the shoulder, but you need to be ready, and likewise, you need to seek out those opportunities. I mean, that sounds kind of bad. Come on.
One of the things that came up for our group was about having an integrated system of tools, like the evaluations that we take on an annual basis, being tied into our script, so it actually follows it. Is that something?
Yeah, so within all of that workday efforts, I mean, I think what we're trying to do is it's based on this notion of how do we develop people, right? At the cornerstone of appraisals will be like 4 questions, right? But part of it is going to have a spin on how are you growing and developing, and that's going to take more of a precedence.
I was just going to say, you have to repeat the question because folks on the phone can't.
Sorry.
Oh, so I was just saying that at our table, we were talking about having an integrated plan so that when we're doing our annual evaluations, that it's tied in with the standout strengths, so that it feels like a path versus separate systems.
Yeah, so how do we make sure that what we're doing with other systems and processes link up? And again, I think we're very mindful about career development, professional development as a way to do that. And how do we partner with, other systems that are out there as well, culture of safety, CI care application and all those as well. I'm going to wrap it up real quickly. Todd's 2 cents for what it's worth. So if I reflect back, things that were important to me that I would share actually is becoming yourself, right? So how do you I think probably the most important tool that you have at your disposal is you, right? The most important thing that you have, the most important skill and the most important thing that's marketable is you. So how do you really become aware of who you are? Right? So Nordstrom, when you go to Nordstrom and you look in the mirrors and you get that 360 lens, how are you making sure you get a chance to do that? Right? One is getting feedback. One is taking a look at your standout roles and your standout and what are my strengths? How many of you have heard of like the Myers-Briggs? Right? Different type of assessment tools, where you can start to get some insights on who you are so you can understand what your strengths are and things that you're not good at. Right? But really, how do you leverage those strengths? So becoming yourself and knowing yourself. Starts with heart. For me, it starts with heart. It kind of has 2 parts to this. One is, as I think about you, right? How do I meet you? How do I assume good intentions from you? And if I want to give you feedback, how do I give the feedback for you, not for me? And it's got to start with heart, right? I think the other piece is, how do you love yourself? Take care of yourself in this journey. Find your purpose, find your strengths, be a person of integrity. So it's interesting, having done leadership development for a long time, the one competency, the one thing that keeps coming back no matter whatever is integrity. So this is a big place, but never lose yourself in this, and then develop meaningful relationships. Get on an ERG. Keep coming back. Get to know the people, build relationships, because they're going to help serve you as much as your manager or your leader. So with that ends this audio portion of the program. And thank you, and have a great day. Enjoy the weather.
Thank you so much, Todd. A round of applause for Todd. And thank you to all the folks on the line. Thank you for being so patient. My name is Amanda Felix. I'm Jared's counterpart. But I do want to just thank you all. We're going to send a survey out. We would love to hear from you because we want to bring more opportunities just like this to you. If you are not in our ERG, please do consider joining. We also have a lot of leadership roles that will help us develop workshops and sessions just like this. So please do sign in, and we would love to have you on the team. So thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.